She was 10 years old, and she was sick with a fever. It was Halloween. The doctor had given her mother strict orders to see that she stayed in bed. She lay there, listening to the faint laughter coming from downstairs. It made her feel so sad and left out. There was a Halloween party going on downstairs, and she was missing all the fun. Her cousins were there, and her uncle was the host, who was always the life of the party. She imagined him telling stories and arranging the games. She wished she could be down there too. It had been a long time since anyone visited her. Earlier in the day, her cousins had poked their heads in the door and said it was a shame she was sick and would have to miss the party. That only made her feel worse. She felt like everyone had forgotten about her. She was tired of reading, and there was nothing else to do. It was dark outside, and the lamp was very dim. She just lay there listening and staring at the ceiling. She listened as the old house creaked and groaned. It gave her chills. She wished there was more light in the room. Dark shadows gathered in corners of the room. She wasn't one of those people who believed in ghosts, but still, she hoped she never saw one. She heard footsteps coming up the stairs. She listened as they came down the hallway and stopped outside her door. Somebody knocked. "Come in," she called. The door opened, and her uncle stepped into the room. He smiled at her and asked how she was feeling. "Just bored," she sighed. "What's going on downstairs?" "I'm getting ready to put on a costume and scare everyone out of their wits," her uncle said. Her face brightened. "Is it scary?" she asked. "Extremely," her uncle replied with a grin. "Can I see it?" she asked eagerly. "I don't know," said her uncle. "It might scare you too much." "Oh, please," she begged. "Please, can I see it?" "All right," her uncle replied. "When I get dressed up, I'll come in and show you before I go back downstairs." "You're sure you won't be scared?" her uncle says. "Of course I won't," she laughed. Her uncle left, closing the door behind him, and she lay back down, nervous with anticipation. She listened as his footsteps disappeared down the hallway. She lay there waiting for some time, wondering what kind of costume her uncle would be wearing. Would it be scary? Would she be frightened? She hoped he wouldn't jump out at her or burst into the room. Everything was eerily quiet. She couldn't hear anything at all from downstairs. The room was very dark. She was sure the lamp was getting dimmer. The shadows in the corners were growing. She closed her eyes for a little while and waited. Her uncle seemed to be taking ages. Where is he? What is taking him so long? She asked herself. Just then, she heard a sound. Her eyes flicked open. It had sounded like a door opening and closing. Her heart began beating quickly. Had he come in? Was he already in the room? She asked herself. She looked at the door. Then, as her eyes adjusted to the light, she noticed a figure in the shadows. It was standing between the door and the wardrobe. The figure was small, no higher than a table. It was standing there with its back to her, wrapped in a black cloak that almost blended into the shadows. That was why she hadn't seen it at first. A thrill of fear and excitement ran through her body. How had he managed to slip in without me noticing? She questioned herself. The figure slowly turned to face her. She tried not to show how frightened she was. The face was hideous. It was a dead, pale face with a long, pointed nose. There were no eyes, just small black holes in the mask. It was too good. It looked almost real. She laughed again nervously as the figure emerged from the shadows and moved towards her. She braced herself. She didn't want to scream. She didn't want him to be able to tell everyone downstairs how he frightened her. She stared at the horrible face as it came closer and closer. It was too scary. She couldn't take it. She flung the bedclothes over her head and tried not to scream. She was about to tell her uncle to stop when she heard someone was knocking at her door. She heard her uncle's voice. "I'm ready," he said. "Can I come in now?" One evening, a teenage girl came home from school and found the house empty. Her mother had left a sticky note on the fridge for her. It said her father was working late, her mother was out shopping, and her younger brothers were at soccer practice. She was alone in the house. The girl locked the front door just in case. Then, she put her mobile phone on the hall table, hung her keys on a hook, and went upstairs to her bedroom to change clothes. As she was getting undressed, she saw a sticky note on her bed. She picked it up and looked at the message. It read, "There's someone in the house." She assumed it was her younger brothers playing a trick on her, so she crumpled the note. "Okay, very funny guys," she said. "What happened? Did you two miss soccer practice?" No answer. "Hey, I know you're here," she yelled. "If I find out you two went through my stuff again, you're dead." The girl went downstairs to the kitchen to fix herself a snack. When she opened the refrigerator, she discovered another sticky note. It read, "There's nobody here but you and me." She dropped the note and said, "Hey guys, this is not funny anymore, stop it." There was no answer. The girl went to the front door and tried the knob, but it was locked. She turned around to get her keys, but the hook she hung them on was empty. Then the girl glanced down at the hall table and saw that her mobile phone had disappeared as well. On the table, there was another sticky note. It read, "You're not going anywhere." She screamed and picked up the phone to call the police. There was no dial tone. She grabbed the phone line, and to her horror, she realized it had been cut. There was another note lying by the phone. It read, "No phone, no police, no way out." Trembling with fear, the girl ran to the back door. When she tried to turn the handle, she found it was also locked. Just then, she spotted another note stuck on the back door. It simply read, "Look up." So she looked up and saw her pet cat speared through the heart and pinned to the ceiling with a kitchen knife. She screamed in terror and ran to the nearest window. She tried punching and kicking it, but she couldn't smash the glass. It couldn't even crack. There was a sticky note on the window. It read, "You can't catch a break, can you?" The frightened girl desperately tried to think of what she should do. She needed a knife to defend herself. She ran to the kitchen, but when she pulled out the drawer, it was empty. All the knives were gone, and in their place was yet another sticky note. It read, "Children shouldn't play with sharp things." She ran upstairs to her bedroom and locked the door. She checked inside the closet and under the bed. There was nobody there. She breathed a sigh of relief. Then all of a sudden her TV turned on by itself. It was loud and static. On the screen she found another note. It read, "Now I have you where I want you." The girl flew into a panic and started yelling and screaming, "Help! Help! Somebody help me!" Just then, she remembered her laptop computer. She flipped open the lid and quickly sent an email to her best friend. "Help! This is not a joke. Call the cops. There's someone in my house. Minutes later, she heard the sound of sirens outside. The police arrived and broke down her front door. 2 officers burst into her bedroom and found her cowering in the corner, shaking and quivering with fear. The police searched the entire house from top to bottom, but they found no one. As the officers were interviewing her, one of them spotted a sticky note attached to her back. He pulled it off and handed it to her. It read, "I was this close." On Halloween night in 2002, 4 young girls were walking down a lonely street when they passed by an old church. Standing outside was a man dressed in a clown costume. He asked the girls if they had seen his puppy. When they said that they hadn't seen it, the man asked them to help him find his lost dog. The girls agreed to help in the search, and the man in the clown costume led them into the old church. As soon as they went through the door, the man locked it behind him, trapping them in the building. The girls realized that they had been tricked, but it was too late. They tried to flee, but he was too fast for them. The clown tied the girls up and kept them in the cold church for hours. He did unspeakable things to them, and their screams echoed off the marble walls, the wooden rafters, and the ornate ceiling. After he had his fun, the poor unfortunate girls thought he would let them go, but they were wrong. He killed them one by one, and then escaped into the night. People who saw the clown walking down the street didn't think anything of it, because it was Halloween night, and many people were wearing costumes. If only they had known that his clown costume was red because it was covered in blood. The next morning, the local priest was surprised to find the church doors were unlocked. He went inside and, in the darkness, he heard a mysterious dripping sound. As he walked down the aisle, he saw a pool of blood lying on the altar. He quickly turned on all the lights in the church and gasped in horror at the terrifying sight that met his eyes. The dripping sound was coming from the headless bodies of 4 young girls that were hanging upside down from the rafters. Their blood was dripping down from the bloody stumps of their necks and forming a pool on the altar. But the worst was yet to come. The girls' bodies were buried in the small cemetery behind the church. Just a few weeks later, their parents received 4 mysterious packages in the mail. When their parents unwrapped the packages and opened the boxes, they recoiled in horror. The boxes contained the severed heads of their dead daughters. Some people say if you visit the old church on Halloween night, you will see the ghost of 4 young girls standing on the altar. According to the legend, you can still hear their screams echoing into the darkness. To this day, the man who murdered the girls has never been found. So, if a man ever comes up to you and asks you to help him find his lost puppy, remember this story. Jennifer was sitting at her desk in her bedroom finishing up her homework. She had an exam the next day and needed to study. As she was searching for one of her school books, she received a text message on her cell phone. She didn't recognize the number, but the text read, "Take a bubble bath and go to bed. It's a school night, Mom." Her phone must have died or something, and she texted me from someone else's phone, thought Jennifer. Jennifer already been planning to take a nice relaxing bubble bath soon anyways. So she undressed, grabbed a clean towel, and walked into the bathroom. She stopped in her tracks, surprised. The bathtub had already been filled to the brim. That's strange, she thought. I guess Mom filled it in advance. Shrugging her shoulders, Jennifer dropped the towel and climbed into the bath. Her whole body was submerged before she became aware of a burning sensation all over her skin. Within seconds, the burning feeling got worse and worse until she was crying out in agony. She jumped out of the bath, but it was too late. To her horror, she saw the water stained red, blood red. The skin on her arms and legs was beginning to peel off. Then her chest and stomach began to peel. All the skin on her body was coming off. Pieces of her skin fell to the floor, and she started screaming in pain. Her blood formed a puddle around her on the bathroom floor. In terrible pain, Jennifer opened the door of the bathroom and hobbled out. She made her way to her bedroom. Every step was agony. She left a bloody trail along the carpet. She picked up her cell phone to call the police, but there was a new text message waiting for her. It read, "Next time, bathe in water." All of a sudden, Jennifer heard laughter behind her and turned around to find a tall man dressed in black standing in the doorway. He was holding a jagged knife in one hand and an empty container of sulfuric acid in the other.